Hello everybody. This is going to be a video about Python, Plotly and object-oriented programming. So if that's of interest, keep watching. Okay, so the original inspiration for this video was from a book called Python Crash Course, and following on from some web scraping I've done recently, I've been looking at data visualization and ways of showing the data that we've scraped. So what I started off doing was, let me demonstrate this, which is from chapter 16 of the book I've just showed you, and a very short script which imports some data from a JSON file, and then it does this. It creates a graph of all of the earthquakes globally, and the magnitude is represented by the changing colour. Now, this is one graph, and if you go to the website where the data is, let me just show you. Close that, and this is the GitHub page for the book, and if you go to chapter 16 and mapping global data sets and then data, these three files, these top three JSON files, have each been downloaded from that's interesting, it actually displays it. They've been downloaded from a website called, let me just find it for you, https earthquakes. Just push this up here. Here we go. And if you go to this URL, earthquake hazards, science for a changing world, latest earthquakes, and then you can get latest data and tools, and you can find selected type, topic, year, and so on. So for now we will just work with these three files. So what I did was I cloned these, git clone, and well, I forked it. If you go to let me just get this out of the way. Fork. Then once you've forked it, you can clone it. Okay, so that's the description of the video. I've said that I'm going to create this graph. Now, this code only gets you so far. It creates one graph. Now, what I want to do is actually create as many graphs as I have data for. So rather than just having one file name, one file, e.g. the 30 days worth of earthquake data, I want to create a class which will then allow me to make as many instances as I want. So first thing to do is we will create what you see here is the exact code that came from the GitHub page, Eric Mathes GitHub page. So let's create a class, and we'll call it capitals plot earthquake. And let's go for def underscore init self, excuse me, I don't have anything contagious, honestly. And what we want to do is say self.title, my title. So we're going to use the title. That will be the title that we use in naming the output file. As you saw, when I just ran the code, we had not only did we have an HTML page with the graph on, the plot, we also had an image which was saved, which I didn't actually show you, did I? So if you want to see that, just bear with me. Let me show you something I did earlier. It's a bit of a spoiler, but this is what we will get when we've completed the code. And it saved it as a PNG. So self, we need to have a variable self and title, which, yeah, let's just, we'll initialize it empty, which is good practice. And let's go for self.file name, initialize that, self.data, so we'll have that as empty, and then we'll do self. I'm keeping the variable names from what Eric started off with. And then let's just kind of, we want to load some data. We were going to load it from a file which will have a unique file name. And once we've loaded the data, we'll want to parse it. And what next? Then we want to make the plot. So do plot, and that will just be self again, and we'll do pass for now. So that's the general layout, and yeah, no main driver, so let's do main driver if we'll put pass in there for now. So if we run this right now, we will get, we should get nothing, I would expect. Let's just try it. Oh no, it has run, okay. Global earthquakes. So this uses in Plotly, by the way. So let's just start. I'm sorry, I've gone straight to the code really, but yeah, we import JSON, and then from Plotly, he imports Scattergeo and layout. Scattergeo is what allows us to generate the map of the world. Layout is what later on will enable you to give, I think I've only used it to create the title. So the title gets used when you create the plot at the end. So we've created a class. what we need to do now is create the actual methods. So the first thing we want to do is load the data, and to load the data we can actually, let's begin with what we originally had here. Let's do Control J, get rid of that. And instead of pass here, what we're going to do is we will add this in. Okay, so instead of hard coding the file name, we want to say self.filename, and then it equals the file name which is supplied. So whatever we pass to that method will be loaded here, and then that will go into the self.filename. And then with open that file name, self.filename as file, so, then we need to say, so whenever we have variable that's specific to the instance, then we use self, and that will do for the load data method. Yeah. So we will specify a file name, we will pass that into here, we will open that file name, and then we will load the JSON data from it into a variable. File name, self.filename, open that file, and then load the JSON from it into a variable called self.all_equal_data. Good. Right. Next, we want to pass the data. So we've got our variable with all of the data in it, and so we can get rid of that. We've done that. That's the original code. And what we need to do now is this block here, we can put pretty much straight into, because what he's doing here is he's passing the JSON. So if we just get all that, and let's paste that into parse. Okay, we need to just tidy that up a bit. Right. all_equal_dix equals, so wherever we've got all_equal_data, sorry, equals, not equals, earthquake data, so self.all_eq data, and we don't want to be, we want to we also want to get the title. So the title, let's show you, the title was hard coded in the example by Eric, and one of the tasks at the end of the chapter was to create it dynamically, and let me just show you how we can do that. If we open up the JSON, I'll just go for the 30-day one. It takes a while to load because it's quite a big file, and yeah, let's use title. So whatever appears here, you see I've highlighted that in blue, we want that to get loaded into self.mTitle, my title. So to get to that, we need to go for, so we've got a dictionary within a dictionary here. So we need to go for key value, key value. So the key will be metadata, and then we want the key from that. So we need to go metadata in square brackets and then title in square brackets. Just move that out the way, back out of the way. Okay, good. Next, we'll stick with the lists. He's creating 4 lists, and then he's looping through the JSON and gradually appending to the lists. So for each of the dictionary values, he's adding those values into these 4 lists. And I think that's it for there. And then the data. So the data we can if we copy that, cut, and we've already created a variable called self.data. Backspace on that. Okay, I hope this is making sense so far. What I'm doing is I'm converting variables into class variables. So wherever you need to maintain the values in the method between methods. So this data is going to get passed from this method into my next method, which is going to do the plotting. So that's why I need to do self, because that keeps it, but that allows me to transfer it. Otherwise, when the method closes, you would then lose that variable. So that's why I'm doing that. Yeah, so what's left? Okay, all I've got left is my layout. So at the moment that was hard coded, so I'll show you that in a minute. And then we want to create the figure, and then we want to do an offline plot. So again, here, this was all hard coded. So in fact, if I run this, it should run without error. Let's just try that. Good, that ran without error. Yeah. So, plot earthquake init. So we create the instance, we load some data from a file, then we load the contents of that file as a JSON object into our variable. Then we pass that variable to parse. We pass the bits of information from it that we want, and then the magnitudes, the longitudes and the latitudes are loaded into the variables in our self.data variable, and then we pass that to the plot method. So what we need to do now is we need to say something like self dot, did I create the layout in the instance? No, I didn't. In fact, that's probably okay. self.m my layout equals layout, which is a, if we go up here, you'll see it's imported from plotlygraph underscore objs import Scattergeo and layout. So we've imported layout, and the layout, but using layout we can specify the title, so self.title. So we create a layout and then we pass the layout to something called the fig. And I'm doing this in the wrong place because I'm not concentrating. This goes, it's better. The title, that's the title which we will use as the file name, and we will use it as the text which appears in the HTML page when we display it on the screen. Fig. Now fig is another method of Plotly. We want to say data, and we're making a dictionary here, so self.data. And we also want to say layout self. We want to use the layout that we've just created, which references the title. You could have other things in this layout as well as title. So we do fig, which creates the figure. Then offline, again, this is another Plotly method. And okay, this next bit, so fig, took a bit of trial and error, equals self.mTitle plus, we need to put HTML on the end, otherwise it gives us a little advisory. Image underscore file name. So what is the image going to be called? So we want to call it, let's, for now we'll just call it the title, which we, as I showed you, that we got from originally it came from Notepad, didn't it? I didn't close the quotes on there. I was wondering why the colours were wrong. And next, what is it? Just looking at my notes. I'm just going to copy and paste these. So we need to say it's in image, it's a PNG, auto open, which means it'll open in the browser when we plot it, image width and image height, auto open, image width, image height. So yeah, some of this I gleaned from the book, other bits I had to do a little bit of research. There's lots of information out there, but it always narrows down once you start doing anything kind of off-piste. And really what I'm doing here is I'm generating these using classes, and I'm creating several maps, whereas most examples will just be one map. Okay. Let's just I think that ran okay. Yep. Yeah. Okay. We've created a class, and we've created init method, load data, pass the data, and then we send the data to, or we will send the data to our plot method, which will create the nice plots. So I think that's time to start with make objects from files in data one graph per file. I call it a graph, let's call it a plot actually. So I have in my I cloned this to start with, so I cloned this from I forked his page to my GitHub, and then from my GitHub I then cloned it, but you could just download it, save as. All you need is these 3 files, and then you need them in a folder called data, which is one up from where you are executing your earthquakes.py or whatever you want to call it. So let's make enq JSON equals, and because I'm not the world's best typist, I'm just going to copy and paste this from what I made earlier. There we go. Typing a JSON dictionary by hand is hard work and it's boring to watch. So I in range, and then what we want to say is from 0 to the length of, and this is where we are looking at the length of the JSON dictionary, and the length of the JSON dictionary is actually 1, 2, 3. So we will be going 0, 1, 2, and we'll be stopping, so we won't actually run 3. So in a minute we need to actually add on 1 to the index when we iterate through, so let's go do that. So we need to say plot n, which is just a temporary variable, equals p underscore plus string of the iterator, sorry, so I. Then we'll say plot n equals plot earthquake. And notice how we're not actually passing anything to this because it's loading the file names from here. So 1, 2, 3. Plot dot load data. We want to load. We want to load from the JSON file. We want to load the key, which will be the same as I, our index, plus 1. So 0, 1, 2, and we want to load 1, 2, 3, which are our keys from EQJSON. Plot n dot pass data. So we load the data, we pass the data, and then we do plot n dot do plot. So let's just run this and see what happens. Plot is not defined. Oh, typo, sorry. Run without debugging. No such file. Oh, yeah, I'm in the wrong directory, which Yeah, I need to sort that out. Let's just do cd. Right, run again. No such file or directory. Data, EQ, data, wonders. Right, just bear with me. Okay, so I've had a few sort of little tips. I'm attempting to use VS Code now, and I also have installed it on a Linux laptop as well. So VS Code on Linux, I'm attempting to get to grips with it. Anyway, I digress. Python, I'm going to run it from command line. Odd habits. Enough of this F5 debugging bollocks. Python earthquakes_original.py. Let's run it. And be patient. And it's made three pages. I think that's pretty good. What have we got here? Earthquakes one day. So that was the previous day of when the JSON was created, which was, I don't know, 2 years ago. So whatever day in history that was, there were a few earthquakes. That week, quite a few. And that month, wow, that's a hell of a lot of earthquakes. And the magnitude, purple is greater magnitude, and looks like we've got a huge one there and a huge one there. And what can you see at the bottom of the screen? You can see some PNGs, so let's just quickly open those and see what we've got. And zoom in on that. It has made me a 1000 by 500 PNG. It's not the sharpest of qualities. Could probably make that many times bigger to get a sharper PNG, but I don't know. If you had to put that on a web page, that would be fine. And I've got 3 of those, haven't I? In fact, if I'd been thinking, what I probably could have done would have been to with, can we do this in, I don't know, picture view. So that's past week, and this should be past month, past week, past day. So if I open this up, we should have a PNG of the past. So obviously that's just a static image. When it's in, when it's in the HTML page, it's dynamic. You can also zoom in on it. So you also get the hover text. If you remember, in my code there was, well, not my code, Eric's code, hover texts. And hover texts, we've appended the title to the hover text variable. Sorry, the hover text list. And that has come from our dictionary, which we loaded. And that was from the properties dict, and then there would have been a title inside that. Let's just show you where that would have been. And properties, there we go, properties, which was the key, and this was a value, and inside, what are we actually looking at? We were looking at the title, so properties, and then title, which I'm doing this really badly. I should have loaded it with pprint title. See title there? And that is the actual, the text that we would get after it. So how many northeast of Alaska, blah blah blah. So yeah, there we go. I hope this has been interesting. It's a bit different to normal videos, but what I've done is I've started with some existing code and I've created a class. By creating a class and the three methods, what we've been able to do is we've been able to dynamically create instances of that class by reading some values from a dictionary, and then we've created the plots. So really this is a quick look at how to use Plotly. Most of the Plotly code has come from here, Plotly module. So all functionality that requires access to Plotly servers, Plotly's API. So you can actually, plot.ly/Python. Go on Windows, let me go there. And there we go. That's the Plotly website. You can let them create your images and so on, but we chose to do offline.plot, and we passed it a figure which was some data and a layout which was just a title. We gave it a title, a dynamic, which was created when we instantiated our object. Image underscore file name, again dynamic. So the file names of the HTML page and of the image came from the dictionary. It was always a PNG, auto open, and those are width and our height. What I did here was I iterated through the three file names that we had in our data directory, and then we iterated through, we loaded the data, we passed the data, and then we created the plot. So I hope that's been interesting, a bit different to normal. This is partial refresher for me on using Plotly and converting code, someone else's code, to a class. And I've got one eye on the future and making sense of data which I scrape during my web scraping exploits. So hope this has been interesting. If it's taken too long, let me know in the comments. You can watch it on 1.5 speed or 2 speed. If this has been interesting, or if there's anything you didn't understand, or if you want to know more about the links or how to clone from GitHub or anything like that, then just let me know. And if you liked it, give it a thumbs up. If you don't like it, then add a comment, or go and have a cup of tea, go for a walk, whatever. Listen to some chill out music. Plenty of that on YouTube, isn't there? 80s synth music, German techno, industrial, drum and bass. I'm not going to sit here all day listing every genre of music, but whatever. Bye.